are back on the road to glory with another off-season edition. It's Monday, June 9th, and we're on the heels of some pretty massive college sports news, not just college football news, but obviously with college football being the biggest, we will be here to talk about it, break it down, cover it all. But first, let me welcome in my co-host, Steph. How you feeling? What's the vibes? Talk to me.
The vibes is kind of low right now. I'm gonna be honest.
Low vibrations, low vibrations.
Yeah, man.
Sorry to hear
Things
that, brother.
things ain't really going well in Duck territory right now.
Yeah, I've seen the little birdies have been chirping and tweeting, and I've heard a little bit of some stuff about that. Obviously, the biggest news out of your camp probably currently being the Evan Stewart injury, and I guess we could talk a little bit about that and just how that affects college football because obviously Oregon was the number one team for most of all last year. Obviously, they lost a lot, but they were also bringing a lot back, and Evan Stewart was a big part of that, especially out wide at wide receiver. Um, those of us who've been following him since high school, like I have, like most of us probably, like real college football fans have, how electric, how dangerous, and how talented this guy is. So it truly is a travesty, not just for Oregon, but for college football to lose a player of his caliber, a potential first round pick. For the season, I know he had a quote come out, and his injury timetable. It really depends on how severe the injury is. Maybe 3 months, 4 months, but also could miss a year or longer, depending on how the recovery time happens. So, Steph, obviously, you got your ears to the ground over there in Duckland. Talk to us. What have you heard about Evan Stewart? What are your plans now? Who are you guys looking towards? Obviously, you guys recruited a pretty highly rated guy. We all know his name. Um, but yeah, talk to us.
I mean, there's really been nothing that's come out about how long this injury should last. But I think even if it is on the short end of the general timetables for a torn patella tendon, I think he'll miss the entire season regardless. Like even if he could come back in October or late in the season, I just think that when you look at what this coaching staff has done with players over the years, they've been on the side of caution. So they've never rushed people back too early. They've always really wanted to ease people back in. And a torn ligament in your knee is nothing to play around with. So I think when you're talking about the interest of the athlete, um, the best thing is to basically not play until you're 100% sure that you can do everything without being an unnecessary risk to yourself. So I think he'll miss the entire season, and whether he comes back in 2026 to Oregon or goes to the NFL, that's obviously up in the air. But he does still have a redshirt year that he can use and come back for another year of college football. But whether that's with Oregon or the NFL, that remains to be, or with Oregon or leaves to go to the NFL, that remains to be seen. So, um, but one thing that I personally think is going to happen is that he's not going to, we're not going to see Evan Stewart um, this season, which sucks because it looked like he was going to be 1,000 yard guy. So, you know, that just sucks because he's kind of had a little bit more production every year, and he's battled injuries at Texas A&M. He's had a healthy year for the most part at Oregon, and missed the Rose Bowl game, and was healthy during spring, but then didn't play in the spring game, and then we have this happen. So it just seems like he can never really have a full year without having injuries. So I just hope that he can come back healthy and have this injury stuff be over for the rest of his football career because we obviously know what kind of player he is. I mean, we saw it very early at Texas A&M as a true freshman, and he's continued that um, up until now. So it's just sad to see, and I just hope that he comes back as the same player or better from this injury.
So how does that affect your depth chart output? Who are you guys going to be looking at to like pick up that production more? And do you think like it really hurts your chances on repeating at uh, a Big Ten title opportunity and a national championship opportunity?
I think so. I think when you look at our schedule, we should still probably go 11-1. But when you're talking about championships, conference championships, national championship, you need all the players you can get, right? So when you have a guy like that
Right.
that's supposed to be that senior leader, he's pretty much the only receiver with any kind of production returning from last year. So he was supposed to be the number one guy, and a lot of people are expecting DeCorian Moore to kind of be that second wide receiver to get the most touches, but he's a true freshman. So I can't really sit there and say that DeCorian Moore has to be the number one wide receiver on our team, which that could very well happen. We know what type of talent he has, but I'm just not gonna say that about a true freshman that we haven't even seen play yet. Um, so there's obviously other wide receivers on our team. We brought in Malik Benson, the transfer from Florida State, played at Alabama, was the number one JUCO player in the country at one time. Um, he's a guy before we were looking at to kind of be a good supplement to everything else we have, and obviously we need more out of him. You got Jurion Dickey, who was a 5-star coming out of high school, who's had injuries his first 2 years, and it's time for him to show us something. Everything I've been hearing is that he looks way better. I think he lost a good amount of weight, and everything I've been hearing about him has been good. So whether that translates to him actually having a solid season, that remains to be seen. But we know that he's a talented football player with size, speed. So that's another guy we're looking for. Um, Kyler Casper, a guy that was getting playing time last year, but then got hurt early in the season, and then we didn't really see him after that. He's a guy that's been there for a while. I think it's his third year. He did reclass, so he'll still be young in age. Um, and he's a guy that's legitimately 6'5", another pretty good talent, and he's somebody that seemed like he was building momentum last year, but then he got injured. So we'll see if he's a person that has some good production this year. And Justice Lowe is another guy that's been a pretty reliable target last year. He was somebody that a lot of people may not have expected to get as much playing time as he did, but with injuries and things happening, he was kind of thrown in there whenever they've called his name. I mean, he's been good. He's been catching the ball pretty well. Um, so we're looking at him, and we got Gary Bryant back again, probably the oldest guy in the room. He's had injuries. Last year, he didn't look as fast as he did in the past. If you look at his USC film, he was a burner, and he hasn't really shown that at Oregon. So I think he did have an injury that might be affecting that, and I don't know. We'll see how he looks this year. Um, so I think this really has to be more of a committee kind of thing in the receiver room. I don't think there's any one player that's going to be a game breaker um, that can just take over a game. If it is, it'll be DeCorian Moore, who's a true freshman. So I'm not saying that. I mean, we also have Jeremiah McClellan, who was a really highly recruited guy who got some playing time last year. So we're just looking at a bunch of guys who played a little bit. You might have seen them a little bit. We know they have the potential, but they just haven't really been able to put it together for a full season. I mean, last year, we all know the three main targets was Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Trayshawn Holden, who were all guys who are on their third, fourth year that have played a lot of college football. So, now it's kind of like we're ushering in a newer generation where you have guys that we haven't really seen as much. And it just sucks because we had that veteran that a lot of teams need in that spot, and so you would have the veteran, and then you'd have a lot of the younger guys. But now it's like we have a lot of the younger guys, and the two old guys, Malik Benson and Gary Bryant, are still unproven. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but I think it's going to have to be more of a committee thing. I don't know if anybody's going to have 1,000 yards themselves, but I feel like if we could get multiple people with 500, if we could get 3 or 4 guys with 500, not having one person getting force fed the ball, but kind of everybody playing their role, I think we could still have a pretty successful season. But yeah, Evan Stewart, I think if we wanted to win a national championship, he would have had to have a season that we've expected him to have as a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. Um, so yeah, like it sucks to see him go down. And in terms of our team, I think it is going to affect us because we know what kind of speed he has. Just being able to take the top off of defense, being able to run those routes that clear out that might open things up for other people because now you have to focus on this guy. And now defenses don't have to focus on a guy like Evan Stewart. It's a bunch of unproven people. I think we're going to see a lot of teams basically dare us to throw the football, and we're going to see if our coaching staff is scared or not to let Dante Moore do his thing. So there's a lot of questions about this team. Is Dante Moore going to be the guy that we expect,
Hmm.
especially with a receiving core that's significantly weaker now?
All right.
Are any of these guys going to step up and be the players that we expect them to be after all this time? So, I'm not really hanging my hat on anybody because, like I said, like a lot of these people haven't really proven anything. If you hear a lot of Oregon fans talk, they want to talk about certain players and their names, but from my perspective, I'm sitting here saying, well, why are y'all expecting this type of play from a player that we've never seen do anything near that before, where they haven't been playing or they've been injured. So how can you sit there and try to list this player as an impact player when we've never seen that? So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more 12 personnel in my opinion. I think we're going to be relying on Kenyon Sadiq and I forgot the tight end's name from Louisville that we took in the portal. That guy's a good player. I think Jamari Johnson, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more 12 personnel, and we're going to be running the ball. We got good running backs. Um, so especially with a new quarterback, I think that significantly changes how our offense is going to look.
Yeah, so that's definitely going to open up a hole at the top of the Big Ten. It'll be interesting to see how that just affects the overall conference standings when it's all said and done. Oregon still, the old adage, next man up. Um, Oregon's been a great recruiting team over the past couple of years, so they still will be there at the top fighting for that Big Ten championship. But this is definitely a big shakeup to that conference. Um, Other than that, is there any other not miscellaneous, but other topics before we talk about obviously the big one with the House uh, versus NCAA settlement?
I think that's pretty much it.
All right, let's do it then. So most of you have probably heard by now, but the House versus NCAA settlement that would pave way to pretty much pay for play, a new era of college football, uh, has officially been passed, approved, granted, whatever you want to call it. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the history of this case, the background of this case, basically it stems from a 2020 class action antitrust lawsuit, which was filed by an Arizona State swimmer named Grant House and a women's basketball player, Sedona Prince. And basically, they challenged the NCAA and the Power Five conferences, the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC, and the Pac 12, for restricting athletes' ability to earn money from their name, image, and likeness, and basically share in the massive revenues that they generate. I mean, you guys all know for decades and decades, the NCAA claimed that these athletes were amateurs and they shouldn't be paid, despite obviously college football in specific generating billions from just TV deals, tickets, sponsorships. Um, and so this lawsuit combined with another case from 2014, one of the O'Bannon case, which uh, forced the NCAA obviously to change and to begin implementing NIL. I think that was 2021 or 2022. It came into effect, and now here in 2025, there will be basically a virtual, actual reality cap. the reality, a salary cap. Excuse me. Before we talk about revenue sharing and salary cap, just your general thoughts on the win for House versus NCAA, and just your overall thoughts on what direction this is all going.
I think the players are definitely losing some power on this one. If you look at how the sport has been for the past 3 years since 2020 when NIL started, the players had all the power in this situation, being able to leave whenever they want, um, and doing things like that, basically, and being able to get money from other places. Um, but now it seems like that might slow down a little bit. Um, and it is interesting to see now we're finally getting some rules surrounding this stuff. Um, but we're not totally at the end yet. People aren't having to sign multi-year deals and things like that. So um, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But we're definitely moving in the direction of these people being designated as employees. So it should be interesting to watch.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, um, and how they, I guess, will technically become employees. Um, so now, with this settlement being passed, there will be revenue sharing and a salary cap. What that means is starting on July 1st, 2025, so in less than a month, schools can pay athletes directly, sharing up to 22% of their average athletic media, ticket, and sponsorship revenue. So this cap will start this year for the 2025-2026 season at $20.5 million per school, and it will increase by at least 4% annually, which potentially could reach up to 32.9 million by 2034 or 2035, so in about 10 years, which is a lot of money. Now, this is a college football podcast, but that number that I just stated, 20.5 million, is per school, not per football program. So the football program is not going to get that $20.5 million this year to work with. But most Power Four schools, the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, they will allocate 75 to 85% of this cap to football, which is about 13 to 16 million dollars. Probably about 15% to men's basketball, anywhere from 2 to 4 million dollars. 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to all other sports. So that's still a nice bit of money for football programs to work with. But the caveat is that each individual school decides how to split the money among players, you know? So not all schools may follow the same, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. You know, you guys know what I mean. They might all do it different ways. Some might pay, their star quarterback millions, while they pay a linebacker half of that, and some might pay everything evenly, spread out to everybody on the roster. It's up to each program to decide that. Um, like if you're Alabama, you might pay your quarterback $2 million while a backup offensive lineman gets 50,000. Now this goes hand in hand and can go both ways with positive and negative. Now, some people may argue that amongst the Power Four, this kind of closes the gap between maybe a school like Auburn and a school like Ohio State. Ohio State is a tier one program, while Auburn currently sits tier two and a half, maybe a tier three program. Um, Ohio State clearly has had a bigger budget or has been willing to spend more recently. Now with the restrictions, they can only spend but so much. While
And
Auburn,
you can still get NIL deals on your own.
yeah, and we're going to talk about NIL in a second. But while Auburn can now technically have an equal salary to Ohio State, and that could potentially close the gap there. Not necessarily, but that's what some people have brought up. Some other people have mentioned that this could also widen the gap between the rich and the less rich. Let's talk about Ohio State and Ohio, or NIU and Notre Dame. NIU just beat Notre Dame this year, right? Um, NIU is not going to be able to. NIU does not make $20.5 million per school year with their athletic department, so they are going to be at an automatic disadvantage, um, not being able to reach that salary cap. So the smaller schools do take a hit um, as well. So before we talk about NIL and the new NIL Go and all that stuff, just what is your thought about revenue sharing? What are your thought on what I just mentioned? Do you think it cuts the gap or widens the gap between who, like, your overall thoughts on that, the numbers and how you feel?
Yeah, I don't really think it closes the gap much because, like I said, you could still do NIL deals on your own, but now they kind of have to get approved by the committee or whatever. But I mean, schools can still just have their people hand out NIL deals to whatever player they want. So yeah, everybody kind of gets money to work with, but it still isn't gonna make teams like Ohio State have any less of a chance of landing a player because if they want a player and the only thing that they can use is money, like that's the only thing stopping them from getting a player, they're gonna figure out a way to give them the money to go to that school. So the teams that have the money are still gonna get the best players, but
Right.
it just kind of it allows schools that might have nothing to be able to do something. So I think it
Something
raises the floor, but it doesn't cap the ceiling.
I would also like to bring up that this model still is not perfect. There are still plenty of issues. They don't have anti exempt laws and a few other things. There's certain states like Tennessee or New Jersey, and that they have laws that let that let a school skirt around certain NCAA rules on NIL payments. So there's still going to be a lot of lawsuits, and I think there's going to be a lot of discussion around this salary cap. I don't know if it'll necessarily hold up long term, and get to that 10-year mark that we were talking about. Um, but let's talk about NIL now and the NIL changes because, like Stefan mentioned, that still will be a big part of the recruiting factor now, especially among the top schools where now both teams, Florida and Georgia, might both be able to offer you $1 million salary. Now the difference will be uh, Florida offers you Gatorade while Georgia offers you maybe not Gatorade. You know what I mean? So that's now where some of the recruiting battles with this NIL space will kind of shift towards, instead of being just boosters being like, yeah, man, you just come be a spokesperson for my company, wink, wink, and I'll assign you for $8 million over 4 years. Like, you know what I mean? So basically, they introduced something called NIL Go Clearinghouse. And since 2021, obviously athletes could earn NIL money from third parties, endorsements, boosters, etc. But now with this new settlement, it tightens that with a clearinghouse called NIL Go, which is run by Deloitte. And basically, their job is to review all third party NIL deals over $600. And their goal is to stop pay for play schemes where boosters, like I mentioned, just basically pay players to join teams under the guise of NIL, and without it actually being NIL. Um, the deals must now reflect fair market value and have a legitimate business purpose. How it works is basically if a booster offers a player $1 million to sign autographs, NIL Go might reject it if it looks more like a bribe to play for a school rather than an actual deal. An independent arbitrator, they can rule players ineligible or they can fine schools for shady deals. Um, so a lot of schools have recently been rushing to sign players to big NIL deals before July 1st to kind of avoid this oversight. So keep an eye on your timeline. You'll probably see a lot of players sign a lot of big deals over this next couple of weeks. Um, they're just trying to make sure that it's not the wild, wild west of NIL like it was before. There was boosters like Miami's John Ruiz, who would just drop millions to lower players from Miami. Now those deals will be more scrutinized. They'll be looked at more, and we'll be able to level the playing field for at least fair, even competition. Obviously, that might start to hurt some of the players' pockets and hurt their earning potentials. And that's something that you mentioned at the top of the show. You said that this is unfortunately a little bit of the loss for some of the players. I mean, overall, um, this is this is light years ahead of where it was. I'm sure you ask a player from even 2014 or 2004 or 1994 if they would like to have played in this era, and I'm sure they would take this in an instant. But from what it was, with all the power in the player's hand, this is definitely a pushback to that. Like, I mean, Bryce Underwood, he reported he had like a $10 or $12 million NIL deal to sign with Michigan, and deals like that in the future now they're gonna face tougher face checks. Um, my only problem is the whole fair market value concept. That's a little bit murky. Like, who decides what's fair? That could lead to like arguments, disputes,
Yeah,
lawsuits.
that can just lead to a whole bunch of nonsense. And I'm
Yeah,
gonna be honest, it sounds good saying, "Oh, we're gonna make sure these are actual deals," but there's really not. Oh, there's no way that you can sit there and prove that this isn't a real deal or this player is worth X amount of money.
I, I think
Like
there
no,
needs to be
the
like a business, like if I'm saying like there has to be a commercial. Like, for example, like if I'm gonna give you $1 million for a commercial,
right.
like there has to be a commercial. You know what I mean? Or that's gonna cause a lot. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm
I
assuming.
mean,
But
but then there's also the part about them saying that it's a fair market share deal,
right,
so people aren't paying crazy amounts of money
there probably
for
are
a
loopholes, to be
backup
honest. You're
left
right,
guard. But
for
how can
sure.
you say that this is fair market value because the your value is what anybody will pay for it.
Right,
That's the value.
right.
It's not just because you say that this is a value. No, that's not how it works.
No,
Where we can see this all the time in all types of different industries where you might not even understand where how many times where you'll see an art piece that's just a black dot on a
right,
canvas and you
right.
don't even understand and it sells for millions of dollars because but to you it's just a black dot on on a blank canvas and you're sitting there, why would anybody pay money for that? And to someone else it's worth $5 million, so it's worth $5 million. Like you can't say what somebody is worth or not. So I don't really think that it's really gonna do as much as they think it's gonna do. Um, and the other thing too is like yeah, they can make sure that people are actually doing the NIL part, like you said, if there's a
Hmm.
commercial, like if they sign
Right.
a deal for a commercial, make sure there's a commercial. But I mean, are they really gonna keep be able to keep up with this? I mean, there's thousands of players.
I mean,
And
supposedly
players
they
are
have a
going to be
whole firm.
signing multiple deals. Like,
Right.
are they? I mean, how many people are they dedicating to doing this? That's
Well,
my
I think, like I mentioned, if the deal is over $600, it is going to this company NIL Go to be reviewed. Like, it's going straight to them. So I think that is also another issue that, like, this could potentially delay payments,
yeah
or complicate payments. And, like, for example, if I'm a player, right, and I decide I'm going to Florida because I want this NIL deal, and I sign that contract, and now the season's getting ready to start, and my NIL deal and all my money is still caught up with this NIL Go. Will
yeah
I sit out? Will I be like, yo, or will I, you know what I mean? Like, who knows how people can react to that? Like, this could be an issue, but I'm assuming they have a big enough firm to deal with this because,
yeah. I'm like, how many people are they hiring to do this? Because it might take a good amount of people.
yeah, I'm assuming it's run by Deloitte. I don't know who Deloitte is. Let's see, DELO. Yeah, it's a company. I think they're actually in New Jersey. They're an audit, consulting, advisory, and tax service, a multinational professional service network, and one of the big four accounting firms. So they have over 450,000 employees and revenue exceeding $60 billion. So their global headquarters is in London, and they operate through many different locations. So looks like they will be able to handle this, but it will still be interesting to see just how it works and the dynamic that it creates. Adding like a middleman or like a I don't even know what you would refer this as, but it will be interesting to see if this actually makes a difference or if it's just if it's really just gonna all be the same, like Stefan said. Because I can definitely see that, to be honest, especially within the first few years. Like there's still so many questions and loopholes to be had. Like college football, if there's one thing about college football, these teams, these schools, these coaches, they gonna find a way to cheat. They gonna get creative. I mean, from giving money in McDonald's bags to stealing signs and sending fake coaches to different teams' practices and on the sideline, counter stallions. Like there will always be cheating in college football, and I think we will see a new world of that where teams will be looking for loopholes and ways to kind of get around this and things of that nature. But I don't know. Another major factor in what was the main holdup to actually this settlement passing. So the language of the settlement was actually worked out and agreed to last fall, but roster limits held up the settlement from being agreed upon and being passed until obviously this past week. Now, with the new settlement, it basically will replace scholarship limits, which will unfortunately eliminate over 5,000 scholarship athletes with roster caps dropping through all types of sports. Football rosters are now capped at 105 players, a reduction from 120 to 130. Many teams could potentially carry. Um, so a lot of walk-ons and a lot of practice squad players like that will be affected. Um, women's rowing, they had a huge hit. They had like 151 spots on their roster. Now that's been cut in half almost to 68 at certain schools. Um, the positive part now is that schools can offer unlimited scholarships with these limits, though. So currently, for football, let's just talk football. While there were 120 or 130 roster spots, only 85 players could be on scholarship. Now you can have 105 scholarship players. So you're losing 20, 25 players, but you're gaining, what is that, 20 scholarships. So it evens out a little bit. Now, I mentioned, unfortunately, over 5,000 athletes would be affected by this rule. And that was kind of the biggest holdup that they didn't really want to take away, you know, that opportunity from 5,000 kids. They introduced a grandfathering fix, which initially, with roster cuts, all the walk ons and recruits who would lose spots will now be grandfathered in. And schools can now keep current players or those promised spots, for example, 2024 to 2025 rosters or 2025 recruits, beyond the 105 limit until their eligibility expires. So that's up to 4 years or maybe even 5 years in some people's cases, but that's only for the 2024 2025 season and recruits. Um, schools must submit a list of these players within 30 days um, for them to maintain that grandfathering eligibility. Um, so yeah, we'll definitely have fewer walk-ons and developmental players now at your bigger schools, but um, so that might affect, I mean, a little bit of depth, I guess, and practices. Uh, but on the flip side, like I mentioned, you now have unlimited scholarships, so that's awesome. Now, this could maybe hurt the competitive balance, uh, but I doubt it. Um, I also thought I saw something about players being able to transfer without penalty if you're cut from your roster because of this, and but I don't know for sure. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
No, I have not.
Okay, but your thoughts on these new roster limits? Do you think it'll affect football specifically? Now having this 105 players instead of the 120, 30. Um, What do you think it means for practice environments, for depth in general, and just the overall landscape of college football?
I think, well, we already had 85 scholarships. So now we have, what, 105. So there's more scholarships. It does suck to see walk ons going away, pretty much. But again, there's more scholarship players. So, I mean, a lot of them that would be walk ons will probably be scholarship guys now. You know, if you're one of those fringe guys that maybe couldn't get an offer, but they gave you preferred walk on, so maybe that type of player could get a scholarship. But I mean, it does kind of suck seeing walk ons go away. And in regards to other sports, I'm gonna be honest, I don't feel bad for any of them.
That's great.
I don't feel bad for any of them. You know why? Because all these sports exist because of football and basketball. All these non-revenue sports exist because of football and basketball. Those sports don't make any money for the school, and they are literally funded because football and basketball makes the money. In my opinion, all the money that's made from football and basketball should go right back to football and basketball. So all the other sports, they need to honestly, they should be thankful that they exist because of football and basketball. In my opinion, as much like I think schools should have as many sports as they possibly can. But just be honest, it costs money to have these sports. So, you know, it's just the reality that we live in. Like you said, rowing, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
what are
like
we even talking about right now?
like you said, they make all the money, so it does make sense that they reap majority of the benefits. But shout out to the other sports, man. Shout out to them. Um, let's continue along through the settlement. Now, obviously, another major factor was the back payments for past athletes. The settlement includes 2.8 billion in damages for athletes who played from 2016 to 2024 and can profit from NIL or revenue sharing. Most of this will obviously go to the football and basketball players, with some top athletes at big schools potentially earning five or maybe even six-figure payouts. Obviously, stars like Clemson's Trevor Lawrence or Alabama's Bryce Young, pre 2021, they'll obviously get a check for the missed NIL opportunities. Um, Obviously, it doesn't change today's game or anything, but it's it's what the NCAA owes these past athletes. This money will be paid out over 10 years with 1.976 billion for NIL losses and 600 million for pay for play damages. Um, Obviously, this is a big win for past athletes, but do remember that it's funded partly by reducing NCAA operating expenses, which could eventually strain some smaller programs. So obviously, there is some give and take when it comes to that. Um, Although I think that's dumb. The NCAA should probably just foot the bill directly instead of passing the cost off to the schools, especially the smaller schools. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. It's not like they can't afford it after making all that money all those years. But uh, anyways, um, and yeah, one more thing I would like to bring up is the new enforcement, the College Sports Commission. Did you have any thoughts about the back payment or anything like that before I move on?
Not really. I mean, it's not even though they're getting something, it's not going to be close to what certain people would be getting.
Right.
So
Yeah, some of these numbers we've been hearing over these past couple of years have been absolutely outrageous. Um, some of these kids are balling. But yeah, let's talk about the College Sports Commission. Basically, the NCAA is stepping back from enforcing NIL and revenue sharing rules. A new entity, the CSC, the College Sports Commission, run by the Power Four conferences themselves, will oversee the salary cap an NIL Go clearinghouse. It's led by a figure named Sealy and basically aims to resolve investigations within 45 days, unlike the NCAA's slow, long, drawn out process. Basically, CSE for, is a new cop on the block. NCAA has had pretty weak enforcement of any kind of rules over their reign of terror. Um, so now the CSC comes in, and if a school like USC, if they try to cheat the salary cap or a booster offers a shady NIL deal, the CSC can investigate and they can issue penalties or send cases to arbitrators, um, and things of that nature. They will be working hand in hand with that firm that we talked about um, earlier. And I think the big thing about this is that the NCAA is obviously now ceding power to the conferences, and that's something that's been talked about for a long time. That, oh well, the SEC and the Big Ten, especially the SEC and the Big Ten, they don't need the NCAA. They're so powerful, they're so big, they make so much money on their own that they could literally leave and break away from the NCAA. Now, instead of that, it just seems like the NCAA is taking a step back for themselves and just allowing for the schools and the conferences to take over. Now, obviously, this is a win, um, but I think there could be some worries that this obviously makes the system a little less neutral. You know, some conferences might favor their own schools or their own teams, um, and with different states still having different laws, like Tennessee, the biggest example with their lax NIL laws, they could still gain an edge over a school with more strict NIL laws. So not a total fix, but having these two new entities to enforce rules and to try to keep checks and balances on college football should hopefully revive the competitive balance, especially at the top. I mean, I don't think this is going to start allowing a Rutgers now to start playing for national championships. Maybe Rutgers is a bad example, but I don't think it'll start letting these smaller schools start playing for national championships, even in the power conferences. I think this just kind of evens out the top. Instead of having 4 5 teams at the top, we might have like 8 teams at the top, 10 teams at the top. You know what I mean? In that tier one now, rather than only 2 or 3 teams in the tier one. And that's a maybe. I can't even guarantee that. Maybe nothing will change, and we'll still only have those few 3 teams in the tier one, and then a couple others in that 1.5 2 range. But your thoughts on the College Sports Commission, CSC, just them now trying to enforce rules, and obviously the NCAA is taking a step back and giving all the power now to the conferences.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just gonna be the same teams that are at the top just gonna be at the top. Maybe things will be run a little faster, but like you said, the NCAA notoriously slow when it came to different things. But I don't really see it changing much in terms of who is a more powerful program over over a long period of time. I think college sports is one place where there isn't really a lot of parity, regardless.
Yeah, so let's run through this one more time before we close out the show. Just overall, the key points to this House settlement or House first NCAA settlement. Players, majority will be making more, some will be making less. Obviously, the stars will be seeing up to some stars will be seeing millions in direct payments, up to 7 figures. But backups, they might get smaller cuts. So we will see how this affects recruiting, as it could maybe make it more competitive, or maybe it just widens the gap between the schools with the haves and the have-nots. I mentioned schools like Ohio State and Texas that can max out that $20.5 million cap, and they can offer unlimited scholarships, while some G5 schools or smaller programs might only afford 2 to 3 million for football, or only 5 million for football. And this could make some of the powerhouses even stronger. Um, Same for basketball. Some basketball only schools might dominate hoops by focusing their cap there, and not really focusing on football too much either. So um, we will see how that affects everything. And the roster cuts, just mentioned some schools can offer unlimited scholarships now that there is a 105 player cap. on men's football rosters. Um, Obviously, less room for walk-ons or project takes, but um, that's just going to force teams to now prioritize proven talent over all prospects. And injuries could hurt teams that have thin rosters, and you know, there might be fewer blowouts if depth is limited. If the top talent of each team has to play more, the games may potentially be more competitive. But I don't think it'll affect the depth that much. 105 players is a lot of players. Um, I think teams will still be able to run out 2, 3 units of certain positions at a time. Um, NIL they NIL it gets tighter with the NIL Go clearinghouse, aiming to stop booster-driven chaos. It might frustrate some players and fans at first who kind of enjoyed the chaos and the free-for-all, um, but it should aim to hopefully calm some of that down. But like I mentioned, expect plenty of debates over what a fair deal is, especially for a top talent like quarterbacks, and we'll see if some lawsuits and there's some issues. Um, but yeah, Steph, do you have any final overall thoughts on this settlement or just the future of college football?
Um, I think we're just inching closer and closer to players being designated as employees, and then once that happens, people will be under contract, and there won't be any transfer portal or people leaving every semester and craziness like that. So we're getting closer to kind of the final nail in the coffin of this being a quote unquote amateur sport, but well, we already know what time it is, so it's just taking a little time for us to say it officially.
All right. And then we can transition to everybody's favorite segment. Well, before we do that, do you have a clown of the week?
I don't know. Did any like? It seems like there's nothing going on, man. Like
Okay, we can take a pass on clown of the week for this episode, and we'll see if next show any more clownery is amongst the airwaves. But with that being said, then I think we can close out the show unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
I think we pretty much hit everything in regards to what's going on now. I mean, just ready for CFB 26 to come out at this point. So that's probably the next milestone in the college football season.
All right, right. All right, so we will close it out there then. We will be back with another off-season edition once we get more news, more things to talk about. We appreciate everybody for tuning in so far for season 3 of Road to Glory. Um, Super excited as we are now in summer, and summer brings college football. Just got to get through the summer. So
Yeah, we're in that dead period.
yeah,
I
it is
mean,
dead. Yeah,
it's
June,
it's
June
at the point
specifically.
where what are we? NBA Finals is going on right
Yeah,
now. So once
hockey
that's
finals.
done, it's
Yeah,
over.
yeah,
Only baseball is gonna be on TV. I know you watch baseball, but
yeah. I'm a big baseball guy.
I don't look.
Shout out to the Mets.
I know like once baseball is the only thing on TV.
Ain't
Lord
nothing.
have
Football
mercy.
is
Yeah,
dead. Yeah, there's nothing football going
yeah.
on.
There's no basketball, no nothing. I
Nope.
don't even watch basketball, but I just
Yeah,
like turning on ESPN and seeing
seeing
stuff. You
whatever
know.
is. I've been watching a lot of tennis and golf as well recently as well. I think those are some two good background sports to like. If football's not on, if baseball's not on, just to kind of throw on the TV and have in the background. They're pretty interesting. The tennis final between Alcaraz and Sinner this past weekend was absolutely electric. Um, was a 28-3 Falcons Patriots comeback kind of vibe. If I was going to compare it to a football game, it was a great set, great match. But yeah, man, we are getting to that time where you got people watching tennis and shit. So football, please come soon. 'Cause I miss you. I miss you. Um, but yeah, let's just get to July. Once we get to July, it'll all start to work itself out. Um, But until next time, stay safe, and we will see you. Peace.